The T-64 became a true milestone in both Soviet and global tank development. Until its appearance, design decisions were guided almost entirely by lessons from the Second World War. The new tank, however, marked a shift toward a new era of advancement and embodied a fundamentally new design philosophy. It was revolutionary, yet imperfect. But for a moment, it seemed closer to the ideal than anything before it. The T-64's story began rather modestly. Engineers at the Kharkiv plant set out to design a tank that would outperform the T-54 by roughly 10 to 20% all across the board. At the same time, they intended to keep it within the same weight class, about 35 tons. Achieving this required more than reshaping some armor plates. They had to rethink the entire design. Their concept called for a compact fighting compartment and a lightweight chassis, with every kilogram saved this way redirected into armor and armament. The familiar V2 diesel used in the T-34 family was replaced by Kharkiv's own compact, high-power two-stroke opposed piston diesel, the 5TD. This small engine became one of the project's defining features, though not the only one. The driver was placed in the center in a semi-reclined position, and to improve visibility, the designers gave him 3 periscopes. The suspension and chassis were redesigned so they would account for no more than 15 to 20% of the vehicle's total weight. The experimental vehicle also received a gun sight with independent stabilization, an optical rangefinder, and a new 100mm gun. It had the same caliber as before, but was significantly more powerful. Trials were relatively successful, yet both engineers and the military admitted that despite its innovations, the tank still needed refinement. The improvements introduced in Object 430 did not deliver enough of a performance advantage over the T-54. Even so, the prototype's potential was officially recognized, and the team began the development of a next-generation tank based on it. The first major upgrade was the installation of a 115mm smoothbore gun. The U-5TS could fire a new type of fin-stabilized armor-piercing round that could penetrate the defenses of any existing NATO vehicle at long range, offered excellent flat trajectory performance, and was also cheaper to produce. But even that wasn't enough to make the vehicle a success. The next step forward was the addition of a true autoloader, placed in the center of the tank. After thoroughly analyzing the pros and cons of relying on automated loading, both the military and Kharkiv engineers agreed that its inclusion was ideal for a compact tank with a cramped fighting compartment. A carousel mechanism in the hull center would reduce the vehicle's overall dimensions, make loading consistent and independent of crew fatigue, and consolidate the ammunition into a single central location. And the innovations didn't end there. The tank also received composite armor, several layers of different materials combined within a single armor package, designed to offer good protection against shaped charge weapons and missiles. Object 432, as the vehicle was designated, entered trials in the early 1960s, and failed them. The military rejected its temperamental and complex engine and criticized several underdeveloped components. The tank was not fully accepted into service, but despite this, the military ordered a limited production run. After all, the vehicle already embodied nearly everything the Army believed a perfect future tank should have. All that remained was to identify and fix the deficiencies. For a while, Object 432 was only built in small batches until it was finally accepted into service in December 1966 as the T-64. Even so, years of refinement still lay ahead. Several factories and design bureaus took part in bringing the tank up to standard. In the late 1960s, Kharkiv engineers developed an improved version designated T-64A. It received a new, improved 125mm gun and a redesigned turret. The designers removed some of the legacy features inherited from Object 430, such as the angled sections on either side of the driver's hatch. The upper glacis was manufactured as part of the composite armor package, which was also improved compared to the original model. Finally, significant effort went into increasing reliability of the MBT, especially by making the engine less demanding in service. Compared to its predecessor, the T-64A was a far more polished vehicle, and by many measures, it outperformed contemporary Western MBTs. Yet its main rival turned out not to be Western armor at all, but the Uralvagonzavod-built T-72. Engineers in Nizhny Tagil were originally meant to simply re-engineer the tank to use the proven V2 engine, but ultimately created a different combat vehicle altogether. The T-72 featured a different autoloader design and a more reliable chassis derived from the T-62. The Army ended up adopting both. The T-72 is the mass production and export platform for Soviet allies, and the T-64A as a more expensive, higher-end tank for domestic use. Although Soviet engineers continued improving the T-64A in the following decades, the design gradually began to show its age. New versions of the 5TD engine were tested on it, and the T-64B variant received a new automated fire control system. However, with years, attention of Soviet engineers shifted to other tanks, particularly the T-80. The final T-64 version fielded by the Soviet Army was the T-64BV, which added explosive reactive armor blocks to the 5-layer composite armor of late-production T-64Bs. It lagged behind the most advanced Soviet tanks of the time, but remained a capable combat vehicle nevertheless. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the vast T-64 fleet was largely placed in storage or slated for retirement. Kharkiv designers continued attempting to modernize it in the 1990s and beyond, as the tank still had some room for improvement, but most upgrade plans never made it beyond paper.